Merhabalar arkadaşlar. Gün konumuz biraz yoğun, gündemimiz biraz yoğun. O yüzden başlayalım hemen dersimize. Sesleri sorun yok değil mi? Duyuyorsunuz beni.
Evet hocam, duyuyoruz.
Teşekkürler Gökçe'cim. Pekala, Bilge teşekkürler. Today we will start to chapter 8, nihayet 8. üniteye başlıyoruz. Which is perfectly competitive market. Before to start the chapter 8, we will make an introduction to the definition of the markets according to the firms included into the market. And I prefer to define the market types in like this, in this form. And there are two extreme market conditions that we will learn one in this chapter, which is called as perfectly competitive market. Perfectly competitive market. It is hard to find these kind of markets in real life because there are 4 restrictive assumptions for a market to be defined as a perfectly competitive that we will learn today. But from now, just for now, we can say that for a perfectly competitive market, there are infinite numbers of buyers and sellers in the market. Infinite numbers of buyers and sellers are included into the market. And just in the reverse side here, we have just one seller and lots of buyers in the market, which is called as monopoly. In monopoly, there are just one firm in the market, and this firm is, of course, price maker. It's determining the price and trying to determine the price as much as higher, as much as possible, we can say. And the real life actually will be occurred. The monopoly is also hardly find. Actually, the government is trying to regulate the monopolies and give some incentives to the competition to increase the level of competition in the market, because the monopolistic market, the monopoly, is just bad for the consumers in this market because the price is determined quite high. And these are two different topics, so different chapters in our textbook that we will learn in details. You have already known them, have some idea about them from your introduction to economics courses also. One special market which is located very near to the perfectly competitive market, again, that we will learn in microeconomics 2 courses, is called as monopolistic competition. Monopolistic competition. It's just a kind of hybrid market because both, if you notice the name competition, we have both competition and monopoly. So it's a kind of hybrid market. We will learn, but it's nearer to the perfectly competitive market, not perfect. By the way, all the markets other than perfectly competitive market are called as imperfect competitive markets. Imperfect. And the worst of them is called monopoly, when there is no competition in the market. And this classification of the markets is using the number of firms included into the market. The criteria that we are using this classification is the number of firms. Here in this part, we have infinite numbers of buyers and sellers, we said, and there is one seller. If there are a few sellers in the market. A few, but the number is not defined. It may be 2, it may be 20, it may be 30. There are a few numbers, not infinite numbers, but few numbers of sellers in the market. It's called as oligopoly. A few numbers of buyers and sellers, and they are behaving actually strategically. So the price or quantity is determined strategically. One firm determines its price or quantity according to the other firms within the oligopoly. And one specific form of the oligopoly that we will talk about, I hope, if we can finish all the others, is called as duopoly. In duopoly, it's just near to the monopoly. Duo, here duo, means two. So there are only two sellers in the market. So when we are talking about oligopoly, for simplification, we mostly talk about duopoly models. I hope we will learn in this semester again. And let's start now the perfectly competitive market. We said that perfectly competitive markets are hard to find in real life because of the 4 restrictive assumptions. What are these assumptions? The perfectly competitive market, let's say, have 4 restrictive assumptions. The first one is there are infinite numbers of buyers and sellers in the market. Infinite numbers of buyers and sellers. And none of these buyers and sellers do not have the market power. They have only buying or selling just this little part of the market. So they have no control over the price. None of these buyers and sellers have no market power. And here the term market power is used for to control the price, to set the price in the market. And the second one, the second assumption of the perfectly competitive market is all of these sellers, infinite numbers of sellers, produces an identical product. Identical product. This identical, in order to use the word identical, we can also use homogeneous product, which means that in these infinite numbers of buyers and sellers, not buyers, the infinite numbers of sellers of this good produces or sells just exactly the good, just the same. Not the similar, the shape, the color, the quality, everything about the good is defined, is just the same, identical product. And actually, that is the hardest assumption that will be satisfied in the real life, because in real life, the firms are trying to differentiate their products by putting some extra specialties, by changing the shape, changing the packaging, changing the quality or the other things, the color or whatever. And that's why it's hard to find in, it makes this market too hard to find in real life. And together, these two assumptions makes the firms are price taker. In any firms and any buyers in perfectly competitive market are price taker. Price taker. Price-taking behavior is resourced by these two, but mostly the identical product or the homogeneous product is an important part of this price-taking behavior. What does it mean? It means that, let's draw the market, the firms together, and one firm in this market here. Then turn to the other page again. Suppose that in the left-hand side, we are presenting the market. As you know, the market is defined as the place where supply and demand meet. So here, the quantity, the market quantity, equilibrium quantity, and the price. Market demand, it is the horizontal sum of the individual demands. Please remember from chapter 3. And this is the market supply, the sum of the firm's supply functions that we will learn in detail in this chapter also. And whenever supply and demand equal to each other, this point is called as the equilibrium. So the equilibrium price is determined at this point. Please notice that this supply function includes all these infinite numbers of sellers within the market, and this demand function includes the infinite numbers of buyers. So that is the agreement point of all of the buyers and sellers, and Q0 amount of goods will be sold and bought in this market at T0 price. And the right-hand side, assume that we are examining the firm, just one small firm in this market, say firm A. Here we will put small q, not capital Q. The capitals will be used for the market, and the small ones will be used for the firm base. And we said that here also price. Firms are price taker in perfectly competitive market, which means that the price P0 is determined in the market by infinite numbers of buyers and sellers, supply and demand. And each firm in this market, including firm A, has to accept that price. So demand faced by the firm, that's why this is demand faced by the firm, is just horizontal for the perfectly competitive firms. That is called as demand faced by the firm. What can you say about the elasticity, demand elasticity for the demand faced by the firm in perfectly competitive market? What can you say about the elasticity of this demand function?
Inelastic, perfectly.
Is it perfectly inelastic, you say?
Isn't
No,
it?
it's not. Perfectly inelastic means will not give any response to the price changes. It is something like that. For any price, there will be no change in the quantity demanded. For perfectly inelastic demand, yes, Simi, you are right. This is completely or perfectly elastic demand function. So the demand elasticity here is just infinite. So what does it mean? Now we will learn elasticity of demand is here, not zero, sorry. It is infinite. What does it mean? It means that firm A can sell this good as much as possible. It depends on its the cost conditions that we will add later. But at P0 price, the firm A can sell as much as possible according to this demand function. But at any other price, higher or lower price, this good cannot be sold. None, zero. At P2 price or P1 price, this good cannot be sold, it means. Now, let's try to understand why any other price is not possible in the market. Because of, again, we need to turn to our assumptions here. We said that there are infinite numbers of buyers and sellers, and each of these buyers and sellers have only little market power, or the market share of these sellers are quite low, 1%, less than 1% of the market we think. So if one firm, suppose firm A, put a higher price to this good, and please also remember that each of these firms produces just exactly the same thing. Identical product is produced within the market. Identical product, homogeneous product. So if one firm, firm A, let's say, puts a higher price, P1, to this good, what will happen in the market? Millions and millions firms are selling this good at P0 price, but one firm within the market, firm A, put a higher price P1 to exactly same good, a homogeneous good. What will happen in that case? Nobody will buy this good from firm A. So in that case, the good cannot be sold at P1 price, a higher price. So we are talking about the homogeneous good, homogeneous product, the same, exactly the same. Why the people pay the higher price for the same good? It's nonsense, not reasonable. So it's not possible to sell the good a higher price than the equilibrium. So, but why the firm cannot sell also this good at lower price? What happens if firm A, suppose that, put a price lower than P0, for example, P2? What happens in that case? The millions of firms, the other firms, are selling the same good at a higher price, P0, and just one firm is selling this good at P2. In that case, everybody in the market, the millions of buyers of this good, demanders of this good, wants to buy this good from firm A, because the exactly same good, homogeneous good, is sold in higher price by the other firm, and only one firm tried to sell this good at a lower price. So in that case, the millions of buyers want to buy this good from firm A, but the firm A, by definition, is just a small firm, cannot have the chance to sell this good to the market. It's just one small firm, one in a million, one in a billion maybe. So it's not possible to sell this good to all the market, and that's why although it will have the conditions that will earn some positive profit at P2 price, we don't know the cost conditions, so there can be a positive profit at also P2 price, but it's not possible to sell a lower price than the market equilibrium. Şimdi buradaki durum önemli. Bir kere de Türkçe açıklayalım bunu arkadaşlar. Tam rekabet piyasasındaki tüm firmalar fiyat alıcısıdır dedik. Ne demek fiyat alıcısı? Piyasadan arz ve talep tarafından belirlenen fiyatı kabul etmek zorundalardır. Onun üzerinde ya da onun altında fiyat belirleme gibi bir şansları yoktur. Neden yoktur? Üstünde fiyat belirlememesi zaten gayet daha net bir şekilde belki anlaşılabilir bir şey. Çünkü aynı maldan, tamamen birbirinin aynısı olan homojen bir maldan bahsediyoruz. Dolayısıyla da o homojen malı herkes P0 fiyatına satarken birisi çıkıp da ben P1 fiyatına satmak istiyorum derse o zaman kimse ondan almayacaktır. Neden aynı malı, herhangi bir farklılığı olmayan bir malı daha yüksek fiyata alırsınız ki? Dolayısıyla yüksek fiyat belirleme gibi bir şansı yok firmanın. Ama aynı zamanda düşük bir fiyat belirleme olasılığı da yok. Çünkü böyle bir durumda da bütün piyasa talebi bu firmaya yöneltilecektir. Çünkü aynı malı, yine bunu vurguluyoruz, homojen bir malı herkes P0 fiyatına satarken birisi kalkıp ben P2 fiyatına satıyorum derse, ki burada kar durumundan bahsetmiyoruz, P2 fiyatında kar ediyor da olabilir, bunu da bilmiyoruz ama kar edecek olsa bile satamaz, çünkü bu durumda Tüm piyasa talebini karşılamasını bekleriz biz bu firmadan. Milyonlarca alıcısı bu malı A firmasından almak isteyecek. Tüm firmanın da başta yaptığımız varsayıma dayanarak böyle bir gücü, tüm piyasadaki talebi karşılayacak bir gücü yoktur. Sadece piyasanın işte milyonda birini, milyarda birini, kaç tane firma varsa üretiyordur. Dolayısıyla da düşük fiyat belirleme şansı da yok. Dolayısıyla da her bir firma, tam rekabet piyasasındaki her bir firma e, piyasada oluşan P0 fiyatını kabul etmek zorundadır. Onun dışında bir fiyat belirleyemez. Bu yüzden de niye zorluyorsun Tunahan acaba? 2 yerine 1,99 gibi bir şey de mümkün olamaz. Çünkü o 1 kuruş bile neden fazla verilsin metodi. Değil mi? Yani burada büyüklük kısmı, o infinite kısmını algılamamız gerekiyor. Bu firma milyonlarca satıcı, diyelim ki bu maldan piyasada 25 milyon tane alınıp satılıyorsa, bir sıfır daha koyacağım, 25 milyon tane toplamda alınıp satılıyorsa, benim burada bahsettiğim A firması diyelim ki bunun sadece 100 tanesini üretiyor. Dolayısıyla da toplam üretme kapasitesi 100 tane diyelim ki. Eğer 1,99 yaparsa, 2 yerine 1,99 yaparsa 25 milyon tane mal A firmasından talep edilecek. Ama onun sadece 100 tane üretme şansı var. Öyle bir kapasitesi var. Dolayısıyla böyle bir talebi karşılayabilmesine imkan evet, senin durum zaten farklı. Dolayısıyla da düşük fiyatta, yüksek fiyatta belirlenmiyor firmalar tarafından. Tam olarak denge noktasındaki fiyattan üretim yapmalarını bekliyoruz firmaları. Peki. Now let's turn to the other assumptions of the perfectly competitive market. We said there are 4 restrictive assumptions. The third one is called as the mobility assumption, which means that entrance to the market and the exit from the market is just free. Entry and exit is just free. So if one firm finds this market profitable, then there is no barriers to entry to this market, or if one firm thinks that this market is not a profitable market anymore, then there's no restrictions to leave the market. Exit and entry are just free. There are no barriers to entry or exit, and this this assumption is called as the mobility assumption. And also the last one is the transparency. And the transparency assumption tells us that everyone in the market, any buyers, sellers, or the potential buyers and sellers in this market knows everything about the market. What is the price of this good? What is the quality of this good? What is the cost of firm A? What is the profit of all firms? Everything about the market is just transparent. Everyone knows everything. And these last two assumptions actually will create in the long run the normal profit. Let's just write, then we will explain it in detail. So in the long run, all firms work with the normal profit in perfectly competitive markets, normal profit. We will explain it in details later, not now. Now let's turn to the firm's revenues, the revenues of the firm. Revenues of the firm in perfectly competitive market, of course. Here we will define three types of revenues. The first one is the total revenue. The second one is the average revenue. And the third one is the marginal revenue. Let's start with the total revenue. The total revenue is just defined as the price times quantity. How many units are sold in the market by firm A? We are talking about firm A. How many units is sold and what is the equilibrium price in the market? So when you multiply the units sold and the equilibrium price, which is determined in the market, and this will give you the total revenue of the firm. And suppose that here in this graph, suppose that the price is determined as 10. Then let's make a simple table here for the total revenue, average revenue and marginal revenue. Here total revenue, the units sold, total revenue, average revenue, and marginal revenue. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and etc. It goes on. And we know that also here we need another column. The price is determined in the market as 10, and it doesn't change according to the units sold. It's always 10. The firm is price paper. That's why the price of the good is not changing when the units sold changed. So what will be the total revenue? If 0 units sold, of course, the total revenue will be 0. If just 1 unit is sold, it's 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, and it goes on. What can you say about the shape of the total revenue as a function of the units sold, as a function of Q? What is the shape of the total revenue, do you think?
Increasing, right?
Increasing, yes. When Q increases, the total revenue increasing. Yes, exactly. But increases increasingly, increases diminishingly, or constantly?
Increasing, increasingly.
Increasingly. Is it 10, 20, 30, 40, 50? Constantly. Increasing constantly, which means that it will start from the origin. It will start from the origin. Total revenue of firm A, here 2, and here total revenue is just a linear function. Yes, linearly, just said, a linearly increasing positive slope function actually. And the slope of this function, which means that if the unit sold increases by 1, how total revenue changes? Let's turn to the other page here. It's just increases 10 units. Always it increases 10 units, which is equal to the P0, the price of the good. So the here total revenue, it is the slope of the total revenue is just price here, which means that if the firm sells 1 more unit of this good, the total revenue of the firm will increase by price P0. No, here. Okay. Now let's come to the average revenue. Please remember, I told you whenever you see the word average in microeconomics courses, you can just substitute this word with unit. It's the unit revenue. So to find the average revenue, we need to exactly divide total revenue to the units sold. Total revenue over Q. So if the total revenue is P0 times Q over Q, so the average revenue of the firm is P0 always. So let's come here. To find the average revenue column, to fill the average revenue column, we need to divide total revenue to the level of to the units sold. For 0, it's not defined because there is no revenue. And for the first unit, 10 over 1, which is 10. 20 over 2, which is 10. 30 over 3, which is 10, and so on. It's always 10. It always equals to the price. So the average revenue of the firm always for all market types equals to the price. This is valid for monopoly, for oligopoly, for all the other market types. It's valid for all market types. Average revenue of the firm equals to the price. It's valid for all market types, not only perfectly competitive market. But so before marginal revenue, let's write it here in our graph. We said that average revenue equal to price. So this horizontal line of firm A is just representing the average revenue of the firm also. And when we come to the marginal revenue here, marginal revenue, it is defined as, please remember, all the marginals are the ratio of the changes. Changes of what? Changes of total revenue and the unit sold. So yes, if the firm sells one more unit of this good, how its total revenue changes. That is the definition of the marginal revenue. Like all marginals, marginal revenue is also the slope of the total revenue function, and it is mathematically, of course, the first derivative of the total revenue function for Q. Okay, and let's find it here in our table. Let's fill the last column. Again, for 0 units, it's not defined, but if the level of output increases 1 unit from 0 to 1, the total revenue increases 10 units. Then it increases again 10 units, 10 units, and so on. So for only perfectly competitive market, marginal revenue is also equal to the price. What does it mean? Now we will talk about it. Let's firstly put the marginal revenue here also in our graph, because for only perfectly competitive market, price and the marginal revenue are the same. Now we need to talk about the definition of the marginal revenue. Let's put it somewhere here. And suppose that the firm is just, the firm A is just facing a demand function, not this kind of demand function. Let's start with the normal one, not the firm A, but suppose that the firm is facing with a negatively sloped demand function, Q here and the P here. And suppose that at the beginning, price is 0, and the firm is selling Q0 units of output. So what will be the total revenue of the firm? P0 times Q0, right? P0 times Q0 will be the total revenue. That area I'm not shedding, karışmasın diye taramıyorum ama Dikdörtgenin alanı total revenue gösterecek. Doğru mu? Then suppose that the price, the new price of this good for one reason goes down to P1. And now, of course, it's expected to sell more of this good Q1. What is the new total revenue of the firm? In that case, the total revenue will be P1 times Q1, right? P1 times Q1. And what is the change in the total revenue? How can we calculate the change in the total revenue? I'm trying to explain that part, change in the total revenue. Actually, there are two parts for the change in the total revenue here. One is this part, and then also this part will give us the change in the total revenue. And this, let's say, first part can be written as the change in price times quantity. I'm trying to explain the change in total revenue. Change in price in general times quantity plus the second part. This is part one. The second part will be here the change in quantity times price. Right? This is the second part that we defined in this graph. Over delta Q. But this is valid for a normal firm which faces a negative slope demand function. But for a perfectly competitive firm, because the firm is price taker, price is determined at P0. So if there is a change in total revenue, it will only sourced by the change in quantity, right? Is it possible to change the price for the firm, for firm A? No, it's not possible, we said. So here, the change in price for a perfectly competitive firm will be just zero. There will be no change in the price, but it's possible to change in the quantity. And so the change in total revenue for a perfectly competitive firm can be sourced only by the change in the quantity, not the price. Not possible to change the price. It means that here that delta Q will go, and the marginal revenue is just equal to price for only perfectly competitive market, for only perfectly competitive firm. That is the important part. I will explain it once more after the break. Now let's have a 10 minutes break. Then I will explain it again. Okay, let's continue. And let's explain once more why in perfectly competitive market, for only this market, marginal revenue also equals to the price. In general, marginal revenue is defined as if the firm sells one more unit of output, how its total revenue changes. So here we start with to define or to decompose the change in total revenue. In normal cases, normal, which means that the firms are facing with the negative slope demand, the change in total revenue has two parts, we said. The change in price times quantity, that part, and the change in quantity times price, that part. And the sum of these two parts will give us the change in total revenue over delta Q is the marginal revenue. But in perfectly competitive market, we said that there is no change in the price. So the price cannot be changed by the firm by assumption. The firms are price taker, we said, which means that the first part of the change in includes the change in price will just go is zero in perfectly competitive markets. So the second part, when the delta Q are cancelled, then the price we will have only, and the marginal revenue equal to the price in perfectly competitive market, because firms are price takers. What's the reason behind it? Because firms are price takers. We will emphasize that marginal revenue and price relations with in the other market types in monopoly and the other market types, and we will see that price is always above the marginal revenue for the other market types, but only in perfectly competitive market, price and the marginal revenue are just equal to each other. Now let's come to, we defined the revenues of the firm. Now let's turn to the profit maximization problem of the firm, how the profit is maximized in the perfectly competitive market, because the aim for all firms is to not only earn profit, is to maximize the level of profit. So here the topic is profit maximization problem of the firm. Here in our case, it's firm A. Let's start with by defining the profit, how the profit is calculated. Firstly, let's remember at the beginning of the chapter 7 cost, we defined the profit as accounting profit and economic profit. From now on, we will use only the word profit, but we are just meaning the firm's what? Economic profit. We will talk about only economic profit here, which includes both accounting costs, the explicit cost, the monetary payments of the firm, and also it includes the opportunity cost of doing this business. It's also called as the implicit cost. So when we are talking about profit, we are talking about economic profit. And we can define this economic profit as the difference between total revenue and total cost. This total cost is the economic cost. Economic cost, which is the sum of accounting costs plus opportunity cost. Okay, and we said that the aim of the firm is to maximize the profit. How can we maximize the profit function? You think it's just a function in terms of Q. And if you want to find the maximum point of this function, of course, we don't need delta here. You just derive the function for Q and then equalize it to 0. That's the easiest way to find the maximum point. And if the profit is the difference between total revenue and total cost, it means that derive the total revenue for Q minus derive the total cost for Q, and the difference between them must be 0. What is the first derivative of the total revenue for Q? What's the name of this DTR DQ? What's this?
Marginal revenue.
Yes. Yes, you are right. Marginal revenue. So what is the first derivative of the total cost for Q in that case? It is the marginal cost, right? So for profit maximization, the difference between marginal revenue and marginal cost must be zero, which can also be written as marginal revenue must be equal to the marginal cost. That is the first condition, but not the last one. We have to complete it one more. We will learn it later. We need to equalize at first marginal revenue to the marginal cost. The profit is maximized where marginal revenue equals to marginal cost. That was the most confusing part of the microeconomics for me when I am a student, an undergraduate student in Department of Economics. How can it be possible the revenue equal the cost and the profit is maximized? It just doesn't make any sense to me when I am an undergraduate student. Maybe you have the same problems with it. I just realized very late, not in the undergraduate studies actually, I realized that we are just talking about marginals, not the totals. Bu benim hep işte öğrenciliğimde takıldığım bir noktaydı. Yani nasıl oluyor da bir firmanın hasılatıyla maliyeti birbirine eşit oluyor da o da karın en fazla olduğu nokta oluyor diye düşünürdüm. E, Fark ettiğimde, nerede hata yaptığımı fark ettiğimde aslında toplam değerlerle marjinal değerleri birbirine karıştırdığını gördüm. Yani toplam hasılatla toplam maliyetin eşit olduğu noktadan bahsetmiyoruz biz burada. Marjinallerin eşit olduğu noktadan bahsediyoruz. Yani o ne demek? Please remember the definitions of the marginal. Marginal revenue means that if the firm sells one more unit of this good, how its total revenue changes. Suppose that the marginal revenue of the firm, here in this case, equal the price, and it is 10 in our example. It means that if firm sells one more unit of output, its total revenue will increase 10 units, 10 lira, $10, whatever. And the marginal cost is showing us if the firm sells one more unit of this good, how its total cost will change. Suppose that when the firm produces one more unit of output, the total cost will change, let's say, 8 units. Here in this case, the marginal cost is 8 and the marginal revenue is 10. So is it reasonable to stop here, or is it reasonable to produce one more unit of output? What do you think? If the firm sells one more unit of output, the total revenue will increase 10 units, but the total cost will increase only 8 units. Is it reasonable to produce, to sell this extra 1 unit, or no, to stop here? The firm must stop here. What do you say?
It is reasonable because
it's reasonable to sell this one more unit of output, right? Suppose that then the marginal revenue is again equal to price to 10, and in this case, when the firm increases the level of output 1 unit, again it means that the total revenue will increase 10 units. But suppose that now the total cost will increase by 12 units. So is it reasonable to produce one more unit in that case? When we are equalizing marginals to each other, we need to think of always, is it reasonable to sell one more unit? We are not talking about totals. We are just trying to decide to sell one more unit or not. So here in this case, it's not reasonable to sell. We don't know the profit level here, Tunahan, because we don't know the functions for the last unit. For the last unit sold, there are we can say that there's 2 units negative profit, but we don't know the overall profits of the firm. This is just the numbers for the last unit sold. So there can be a positive total profit here, but although there is a positive profit, although the firm can earn the positive profit here, it's not reasonable to sell this good, because for the last unit, at least was last unit, we have a problem that the total cost will increase more than the total revenue. So where can the firm will stop in that case? Here in this case, we said that it's reasonable to increase the level of output. And here in this case, it's not reasonable to increase the level of output. What's more, it's reasonable to decrease the level of output. So where will the firm stop in that case? It is the point where the firm produces 1 more unit of output, or sells 1 more unit of output. The total revenue changes 10 lira, and the total cost also changes 10 lira. That is the stop point. No reason to increase the level of output, or no reason to decrease the level of output. It's the stop point. It's the point where the profit of the firm is maximized. Let's see it in the graph, try to understand better. Again, we are talking about firm A. Okay, and the price is here, and the firm is price taker. P0 is the price that is determined in the market, and the demand faced by the firm, marginal revenue and average revenue equals to the price. And suppose that the firm have that kind of marginal cost, U-shaped marginal cost. Here, for example, if the level of output is 2.1, this will tell us the marginal revenue of the firm is greater than its marginal cost. Here, marginal cost is below and the marginal revenue is above. So here in this case, it's not the stopping point. It's not the profit maximizing point for the firm. The recommendation to the firm is to increase the level of output. You should increase the level of output, we will say. For example, if the level of output is Q2, here again, we have a problem because the marginal cost here is greater than the marginal revenue, which is just the our example here in the second part, just like here. If the firm produces 1 more unit of output and sell it, the total revenue will increase 10 units, but the total cost increases more than 10 units. So in that case, we will recommend to the firm to decrease the level of output. So what is the best point for the firm? Here, this is the equilibrium, the profit maximizing point for the firm, where marginal revenue or price is equal to the marginal cost at Q0 level. At here, marginal revenue equal to the marginal cost. By the way, I would like to emphasize that the marginal revenue, marginal cost condition here we define is the this is the general condition for profit maximization, which is valid for all market types, for oligopoly, for monopolistic competition, for monopoly, for duopoly, for all market types. For profit maximization, the first condition is to equalize the marginal revenue to marginal cost. That is the general condition which is valid for the all market price. But we can rewrite that condition for the perfectly competitive market as price equal to marginal cost, because in only perfectly competitive market, marginal revenue equals to price. For we said here, for only perfectly competitive market, marginal revenue and the price are equal to each other, and it's coming from the firm's price taking behavior. So we can rewrite this profit maximization condition as price equal to marginal cost. This one for only perfectly competitive market. That can be written as the profit maximization condition, the first one, as for the perfectly competitive market. And now, finally, let's see how the profit can be shown in the graph, in the graphically representation of the profit maximization problem of the firm. We will use both total revenue and the total cost graphs. We are talking about the short run, by the way. We are talking about the short run. Let's emphasize it again. In the first graph, we will put here, we are talking about firm A, small q, the level of output that is sold in the market. And here we will define total revenue and the total cost. And in the second graph, again, we are talking about firm A, but now for average and marginal. So we will put here price only, and the average cost, marginal cost, average revenue, and marginal revenue will be denoted in the vertical axis. Let's start with the total revenue and the total cost functions. By the way, here we will also add the profit level of the firm. So we need the negative part of the graph also. Like that. Here, price again. Okay. Let's start with the total revenue function. We said that. Let's write the total revenue here. Total revenue is just price times quantity, and the price is determined in the market. For example, as 10, it's just stay constant. In that case, the total revenue function of the firm will be the linear. It starts from the origin, and it's an increasing function with the slope of price. And of course, we can say that here, this is total revenue. The slope of this function is price, and it's also marginal revenue, and it's also average revenue. You can also write it. This is total revenue. The shape of the total cost function, let's use another color. The shape of the total cost function will not change from one market to the another one. We generally represent the cost functions in third degree, we said, because of the short-run production, the shape of the short-run production function. Because we are talking about the short run, the total cost function will start from the total fixed cost here. It will increase by diminishingly at first, and then after a turning point, it will increase increasingly. So this is the total cost function of the firm, total cost function. Now here we see two critical points, which is the equalization points of total revenue and the total cost. Let's say Q1 and Q2, and we will also use them here. later. What can you say about these points? Let's say point A and the point B. What can you say about point A and point B? At these points, total revenue and the total cost equal to each other. So what is the profit of the firm? Are there any profit at these points? No profit, zero profit. So these are the zero profit points, and if they are called as break-even points. Başa baş noktası. Break-even points. Before the Q1 output, from 0 to until Q1 level of output, the total cost of the firm, the blue one, is just about the total revenue. So what can you say about this area between 0 and Q1 units of output? The total cost here, şöyle yapalım. Here, total cost is greater than the total revenue. So this part is the negative profit for the firm, yes. Negative profit area from 0 to Q1. At exactly Q1 units of output, the profit is 0, we know. This is break-even point. Between Q1 and Q2, the total revenue of the firm, the black one, is just about the total cost, the blue one. It means that here total revenue is greater than the total cost, so the firm will earn a positive profit. Positive profit. And point B is again a break-even point with 0 profit. And after Q2 units of output, again, total cost is greater than the total revenue, which means that, again, the firm will earn negative profit, right? So the firm will decide about the level of output between Q1 and Q2. Please remember, the aim is not only to earn the profit. The aim is to maximize the profit. And the vertical difference between total revenue and the total cost will give us the profit of the firm for each units of output. And in which point it will be maximized, that is our question. It will be maximized where the slope of the marginal revenue, let's say tangency of alpha, and the slope of the marginal cost, slope of the total cost, namely marginal cost, again, tangency alpha, are equal to each other. Suppose that at Q0 units of output, the slope of the total revenue, which is constant, which is price or marginal revenue, and the slope of the total cost function, the tangency slope, are equal to each other. Here, that distance between total revenue and the total cost, total revenue 0 and the total cost 0, will give the firm's profit, maximum profit. Here we have profit, this amount. Here we have profit, this amount, greater, this amount, this amount. It will be maximized here, then it will decrease again. So for the maximum profit, slope of the total revenue, which is called as marginal revenue, must be equal to the slope of the total cost, which is marginal cost. But this is just one, the first condition of the profit maximization, the only first condition. We will complete it with the second just a little bit later. And we can also draw the profit function of the firm to our first graph here. Let's use the orange. And for 0 units of output for origin, when there is no output level, when there is no nothing sold, there is no total revenue, of course, because nothing's sold, but the firm will have total fixed cost. In that case, what will be the profit for the 0 units of output? Hiç satış yapmıyorsa firma, yapmamışsa henüz hasılatı yok demektir satış yapmadığına göre, ama maliyeti var her zaman için. Hangi maliyeti o? Sabit maliyeti yapmak zorunda. Evet, dolayısıyla hiç üretim yapmadığında, hiç satış yapmadığında da bir zararı olacak. Ne kadarlık bir zararı olacak? Sabit maliyet kadar bir zarar olacak. Demek ki kar fonksiyonumuza buradan başlayacağız. Then, when the firm starts to sell this good until Q1, this negative profit is just decreasing, right? Here, the negative profit is this one, then lower, 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 lower. So then it will be 0 at Q1 level. So it's something like that. The negative profit is getting lower, lower, and lower, and it's 0 at the break-even point. Then we are going to the profit area, profitable area for the firm. It increases, 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 maximized at Q0. Here, it is maximized at Q0. Then decreases, 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 and 0 at the Q2. Again, another break-even point here, this one. And then again, the firm will have negative profit. So this orange one is the profit function of the firm. And the profit is again, it is maximized at Q0 units. So this P0, the maximum profit, is just same distance here, P0, this one and this one are just equal to each other. Yani tam eşit görünmüyor burada, farkındayım ama öyle olduğunu varsayalım. So this is the representation of the profit in terms of total revenue and the total cost. Now we will do the same thing for the price and average cost and marginal cost. So we know that the revenue side is the easiest one because we know that the price is determined in the market. At the left-hand side, we have a market supply and market demand, and whenever they are equal to each other, the market price P0 is determined, and this firm A, has to accept that price, and this price also determines demand faced by the firm, average revenue, and the marginal revenue. And all the revenues, average marginal revenues, are just represented by one horizontal line, which equals to the price. Then we will also draw average cost and the marginal cost. As you can remember from chapter 7, if we have that kind of third degree total cost function, marginal cost and the total cost will be marginal cost and the average cost, sorry, will be U-shaped functions. U-shaped functions. Let's draw these U-shaped functions by considering the critical points. These critical points also. Q1, Q2, and Q0 are important here also. Let's start with the average cost. Here, the break-even points A and B are important for us. Yapacağım. Ha, gayret yapacağım. birazdan yapılmışı var burada deyip Cem Yılmaz gibi bir şekil çıkarmak istiyorum aslında ama bunun için zorlanıyorum. Minimum noktasının burada bir yerde olması lazım ve sonra şuradan geçmesi lazım. This is average cost of the firm. Now let's add the marginal cost also. It's also U-shaped. This is the marginal cost. Now, again, we have now 4 critical points. We know A and B, but here we have point E and the point F. Let's start with point A and B again. At point A and B are the points here where price equal to the average cost. Here in this point, A and B. Also, we can say that price equal to average cost. So if you are selling a good in 10 lira, for example, price is 10 lira, let's assume, and if the unit cost of production is also 10 lira, then there will be no profit, right? For unit cost and the unit revenue, which is price, just equal to each other. So that is another definition of the break-even points. So A and B are again the break-even points. You can also rewrite it as average revenue equal to average cost, just the same. Price and average revenue are always equal to each other, as we said. So it can be also written like this. But here point F and point E are more important for us. By the way, this point is the minimum point of the average cost. When it is minimized, marginal cost equal to average cost. Not important for this case, but point F and point E are important, E and F, where these points, which curves are equal to each other, or which values are equal to each other at E and F.
Marginal revenue and marginal cost.
Yes, I mean, you are right. At E and F in both marginal revenue and marginal cost are equal to each other. We said that this is the profit maximization condition, but only the first condition. And we know that at point F, for example, the level of output is Q3, the firm will earn not positive profit, right? Negative profit. So can we say that point Q3, point F, is the profit maximizing point? No, it's not. It's the actually, again, the slopes are equal here, equal to each other. The slope of the total revenue equal to the slope of the total cost. If you draw, for example, a tangency to the total cost curve, again, it will be tangency of alpha, but it's not the profit maximizing point. So only one of them is the profit maximizing level of output. So for the profit maximization in that case, we have to complete the conditions. For profit maximization, there are two conditions. The first one, the marginal revenue must be equal to the marginal cost. That is the one necessary condition, but it's not the sufficient condition. We need to complete it with the second. We must be in the positive profit area, which is the marginal cost must be positively sloped. If you want to see the difference at point F, the marginal cost is negatively sloped, right? Here, the marginal cost is negatively sloped. But at point E, marginal cost is positively sloped. So the second subcondition for profit maximization is marginal cost must be positively sloped. We must be in the positive profit area, positively sloped. What about point F? How can you define point F in that case? It's another maximization, but not the profit maximization. How can you define point F in that case? Ne diyebiliriz F noktası için bu durumda?
Can we say negatively profit maximization?
Yes, exactly. Negative profit maximization. It's the point. Negative profit maximization. Negative profit maximization, we can say. Okay, that's all for today. We will continue next week from this part. Okay. See you next week if you do not have any question, of course. Sorunuz varsa cevaplayabilirim. Minimum profit değil. Minimum profit ancak bir profit varsa söz konusu olur. Değil mi? Yani en düşük kar diyorsun. F noktasında negatif profit'in o da bir profit. Hepimiz profitiz diye cevap veresim geldi bu ama bir optimum durum söz konusu. Yine marjinallerin eşit olduğu F noktasında, yani o F noktasını buraya da işaretleyebilirim. F noktasında yine marjinallerin, eğimlerin eşit olduğu bir tırnak içinde optimum nokta söz konusu. Bu durum kar alanında gerçekleşiyorsa maksimum kar, zarar alanında gerçekleşiyorsa da maksimum zarar olarak adlandırılıyor. Tabii gelir. Normalde maksimum zarar noktası F noktası ya da yine marginal revenue ile marginal cost'un eşit olduğu Q3 üretim düzeyi. Minimum profit olması için bak şimdi profit'in minimum olabilmesi için bir kere şeklinin ters U şeklinde değil de böyle olması lazım değil mi? Şöyle bir şekilde minimum tanımlayabilir misin bana? Hani profit olan kısım burası ya. Böyle bir şekilde minimum gelebilir mi? Bulabilir miyiz minimumu? Neye minimum diyeceğiz? Minimumunu bulabilmek için bir şeyin şu şekilde olması lazım ki hani burası minimum noktasıdır diyebileyim. Burada minimum noktası söz konusu değil. Evet, en son haklısınız diyelim ki sussun bu kadın şekline geldi olay. Pekala, o zaman görüşmek üzere arkadaşlar. Hoşçakalınız. Anladım. Tamam. Pekala. Görüşmek üzere. Hoşçakalın.